Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now, let's turn the platform over to Reverend Lyriel Claire. The rhythm of time.
Oh, good morning, everyone. I've spoken a couple of times about the laws of the universe. I've covered mentalism, our thoughts create our reality, vibration, everything vibrates, and today I'm speaking about the law of rhythm. Now, I love the laws of the universe. They explain how the world and actually the universe works. I can be thinking about something that puzzles me. I stop and go through the laws mentally and find one that explains it perfectly. The thing about these laws is they are immutable. They are not subject to change, and they are always in play. The law of rhythm is basically a sine wave. We all know what a sine wave is, up and down like that. It's a smooth curve. It's not jagged. It's just a smooth curve, not necessarily a gentle wave. It's sometimes a kiddie roller coaster, and sometimes the beast. We've all been there. It's everywhere if you just think about it. I know that you are mostly aware of this phenomenon, but I'd like to go into it a little deeper. So some examples of the sine wave in life. You go to the airport, you board your plane, the plane takes off, it climbs, it flies, it descends, it lands, and you're at a new airport. Perfect sine wave. Or else you get sick, you rest, take medicine, or go to the doctor, then you get better. Sometimes better than before. Take the pandemic. We wondered what was going on, and then it got worse, then much worse, then much, much worse, and then what? It slowed down. And how are things now? They're normalizing, aren't they? Or you worry about something, it takes hold of you, you get into a dither, then it relaxes, and all is mostly well. What did I worry so much for? Have you heard of biorhythms? They track the ups and downs of your mental, physical, and intellectual energy. And if you want to look into those, there's an app for that. The sun rises, we live our day, we go to sleep, we rest. Next day, same thing. It's a sine wave in action. The moon cycles between a new dark moon to a full moon, back to dark, back and forth. It's an effortless flow. Rhythm is a very basic principle. It's all around us. Everything has a rhythm. The law of rhythm is the fifth hermetic law of the universe. We know about it from the Kabbalion teachings given to the world by Hermes Trismegistus, which says, and I quote, "In everything there is manifested a measured motion, a to and from movement, an outflow and an inflow, a swing forward and backward, a movement between two poles that manifests on the physical, mental, and spiritual planes. It's just like what? A pendulum. It swings forward and backwards. Actually, it would be swinging forwards and backwards, but we usually think of a pendulum as sideways, right? So choose the right side and the wrong side. The law of rhythm states that everything is cyclical and change is always around the corner. Everything moves in and out of various phases of life in this endless flow. If we look, we can see how beautifully orchestrated the world is around us. It's a constant state of moving, of ebbing and flowing. The law of rhythm encourages us to have a glass half full perspective, even when things are bad. Negative circumstances will always change and eventually return to a more desired outcome. And this law encourages us to weather any storm because something better is always around the corner. Of course, most of us would like to stay in the good parts of life indefinitely, but because we can't, this law is sometimes misinterpreted as a reason to be pessimistic. You might hear this definition of the law and think, well, if something negative is always around the corner in the next cycle, then why bother trying? Why manifest anything for ourselves? Well, the law doesn't guarantee that bad things will always happen. What it does guarantee is change. This is the law that makes us say the only constant thing is change. If we allow ourselves to cycle through our various emotions, actions, thoughts, priorities, and even relationships, it can help us stay balanced and healthy. For example, burnout is caused by forcing yourself to stay in productivity mode when your body and spirit are asking for a rest. So whether you're working on your health, finances, relationships, or any other goals you might have, it's hugely important to be aware of the law of rhythm, but not allow it to bring you down. As soon as you feel that backward swing of the pendulum in your life, don't allow fear to take over. Rather, understand that this is how the universe works, and that just as the pendulum swings backwards, it has to swing forward again. It can't stay there. It's always in motion. So it's wonderful when everything is in the flow and all is well with your world. But when things take a turn, suddenly your focus is on what? Struggle. Struggling to correct course as quickly as possible. Why am I going through this? Well, struggling through is not the answer. In this circumstances, we have two choices. The first choice is to let your ego cling for dear life to where you thought you were headed and do everything you can to push through, struggle, and focus on nothing else but trying to get everything back exactly to how it was. Well, things might turn around, but there's no joy when you are so driven by panic. The worst thing you can do is to try to fight against the current. The second choice you have, recognize that the universe is pulling energy back for a reason, and the best thing you can do is acknowledge it and let go. Based on the law of rhythm, everything will be good again soon. It's better to relax into where the universe is pulling you because there is a reason you have been brought there. Stay positive and keep going, and you'll find that over time, those backward swings will be weaker and weaker, and you will be stronger than you once were. It's a way to make things better than they were before. The pendulum is not two-dimensional. It's hard to show here, but if it swings left and right, so good, bad. Every time it swings, it moves forward a little bit. It doesn't stay back, it doesn't go backwards, it's always moving forward. So this swing is going to be a little different, maybe a little weaker. This is going to be different, and it's on, so it's always making progress. So in this respect, you can think of the pendulum as a mighty vehicle for inner growth. So it's easy to understand the law of rhythm as applied to material things, but its influence also extends to mental activities. It accounts for our succession of moods, feelings, and other annoying and perplexing changes that we notice in ourselves. So you may ask yourself, well, do I have to live my entire life being subject to the pendulum? Is there no hope, no way out? Well, yes, there is. The Hermeticists, those people that codified these laws, learned to escape some of its activities by something called transmutation. Now, the explanation of this is a little complex, so I have attempted to simplify it for you. It can be distilled down to this phrase, be in this world, but not of this world. Be in this world, but not of this world. Yes, the law of rhythm is invariable both in the physical and mental world. And there are two general planes of consciousness, the lower plane and the higher plane. The pendulum that swings on the lower plane is the unconscious plane. our lives on automatic. However, you can choose to rise above a thing and let it pass beneath you. That's a higher plane of consciousness. So this stuff is going on down below you, but you're up here on a higher plane. And you refuse to participate in that backward swing by simply denying its influence on you. And as you stand firm in your position, that mental pendulum swings back on the unconscious plane, yes, but you are untouched. You're up here on a different plane. Your pendulum is swinging, but the swings are much, much less dramatic. So in other words, you simply and in no uncertain terms refuse to allow negative moods, events, and states to affect you. Actually, it's not as hard as it may seem. Simply, you have to rise to the higher plane of the ego. There, you can avoid and escape much of the experience that comes to those dwelling on the lower plane, the automatic pendulum plane. Be in this world, but not of this world. Live in the world, participate in it, but don't let the negative stuff affect you and create inner turmoil. And generally, the majority of people are creatures of moods, feelings, and emotion, and have little to no mastery of themselves. We're all caught in it from time to time as well. And if you stop and consider a moment, you'll realize how much these swings of rhythm have affected you in your life. How a period of enthusiasm has been followed by the opposite feeling and mood of depression. Or likewise, moods and periods of courage have been followed by equal moods of fear. I can't do that. That's how it is with the majority of the people. Tides of feeling rise and fall with them, but they never suspect the cause or reason of this phenomena. But now you know it and can take appropriate action, right? So when you understand the workings of the law of rhythm, it will give you the key to mastery of the rhythmic swings of feeling. It will enable you to know yourself better, and you will avoid being carried away by these inflows and outflows. The pendulum still swings, but we can escape being carried along with it. Again, as I said earlier, the pendulum swings back and forth, but always in a forward motion. It does not rest on one plane, and you make progress. So for all the bad, there has to be good, right? Sometimes a bad winter is preparing the foundation for a really beautiful spring. All phases bring new growth. Since we know that change is unavoidable in life, there isn't any point in resisting or fearing it. It can be good or bad, depending on the meaning we apply to it. You can determine whether or not you are in the flow by asking yourself questions like, do I blame myself when things don't turn out right? Do I accept obstacles knowing they're only temporary? Can I view my lousy circumstances with more appreciation, knowing that good experiences are on the way? No matter what we do, there will be seasons of growth, cycles of challenge, followed by contentment, sadness, followed by happiness, loss, followed by gain. We came here to have a human experience, and the law of rhythm allows us to experience the full spectrum of all of it, only giving us doses we can tolerate as it flows in and out. So instead of being depressed when you're going through a rough patch, take comfort in knowing that it is always temporary. This is the law of rhythm. Recently, we had a guest speaker here who spoke to us twice. Each time his message was that the end of the world as we know it is at hand, and there is no escape. He presented no further guidance, and I admit I was fairly depressed for a couple of days after his first talk, and know that a number of you were similarly affected. My feeling was not so much one of, oh my God, the world is ending, but that he left everyone without tools to cope, or worse, any hope. So let's look at this from the point of view of the law of rhythm, that unmutable, unchangeable, invariable law. First of all, how many prophets of doom with their end of the world is at hand sign have you seen in the media? And how many ends of the world have actually occurred? Cults have risen around the faulty belief in the end of time, and the dates they give for the event have gone by without a whimper. People have forgotten that just in the last 125 years, humankind has experienced multiple doomsday possibilities. The world wars, or any wars, the Depression, the Holocaust, multiple disease pandemics, the Cuban Missile Crisis, Chernobyl and Fukushima, and on and on and on. Any number of events that could have spelled total devastation. They all reached horrendous climaxes and then receded. Why? Because people were not going to let outside circumstances take them down. They went to their higher consciousness. Each imminent disaster called forth the best in humanity. People helped each other, reached out in astonishing ways. New positive energies sprang forth as needed, grassroots organizations. I always think about the remarkable chef Jose Andres, who fed millions of people who had no food just because he could. He marshaled his resources, he got them to the place where this was needed, and he proceeded to cook. I know many of you here are involved in truly worthwhile volunteer activities, willingly helping people who are suffering or needy. And this is what being a light bearer is all about. It stops the extreme swing of the pendulum. So if things look bad, don't let that into your energy. Find the positive and focus on that. Don't watch negative news programs or keep your TV on all day, tuned to all the negativity spouted by the news outlets. I find I can get all the news I need and not let it disrupt my energy by subscribing to a brief online news feed that gives me the basics. It's enough. I do not need to wallow in misery. Where's the joy in that? Are you choosing to stay in the negative part of the flow? I choose a different approach. It is not hard. Be in the world, but not of it. Don't contribute negative energy. Rise above the negative circumstance and know that the universe knows what it is doing. The more negative energy you contribute, the more negative energy there is out there. And when someone who appears to be an authority tells you something that is contrary to your belief system, if it doesn't resonate with you, simply stand back. The law of rhythm will balance things out. And by the way, the world is not going to end. And also, the guest speaker said, and this is important, the end of the world as we know it. Now, he cannot speak for anyone but himself. Why is he pulling everyone else into it? The end of the world as he chooses to know it would be more apt, and it may be his end of the world. The law of mentalism, the first law, says you create your own reality. As you think, so you are. This is invariable and immutable. Things will always return to being great again, no matter how awful we may feel in the moment. So enjoy the moments of bliss while they're here, and look forward to returning to happiness when you're feeling down. This knowledge can empower you to keep moving forward when you feel defeated. And the law of rhythm allows us to accept all phases of life with a new perspective and to be more understanding and compassionate to ourselves during the ups and downs of life, because they're all inevitable. Know that the law of rhythm will always be around to restore balance, and it's always working in our favor. Trust me on this. The universe has spoken.